Carl Jung called it the mother archetype, an ancient powerful image rooted deep within the collective unconscious. It is not merely a memory of your biological mother, it is an archetypal image, a sacred symbol that shapes how you love, how you exist, and most importantly, how you perceive yourself in this world. This image is imprinted upon you very early, even before you had the words to name your emotions. And if your real mother had once been wounded, anxious, or loved you conditionally, then chances are you grew up not just in a household, but inside an entire system of distorted beliefs about yourself. That you had to be worthy to be good, to be gentle, and not too loud in order to be loved. This is not a judgment upon your mother. Rather, it is a painful yet necessary truth that sometimes the love we receive carries wounds that were never healed. And because of this, the image of the mother in your psyche becomes a model that is both sacred and limiting. You may have left your mother by geography, by age, even by silence. But chances are you have never left her image in your mind. Because the mother archetype is not out there. She lives within you in the moments you criticize yourself for not being enough, in your fear of abandonment, in your yearning to be validated. And this is exactly Jung's invitation to turn inward, to examine whether the inner mother is nurturing or wounding you. For only when you become aware of this can you truly begin the journey back to your whole original self. In Jungian psychology, the mother is not merely a person, she is a symbol. A gateway to the shadow, to dependency, to childhood wounds, but she is also a gateway to rebirth when you are brave enough to see and heal yourself. The mother as an archetype, not just the one who gave birth to you. When we speak of mother, the first thing that comes to mind is usually a specific person, our biological mother. A face, a voice, a familiar embrace. But in Carl Jung's analytical psychology, the mother transcends any one person or memory. Jung called it the mother archetype, a symbolic pattern living deep within the collective unconscious, beyond time, beyond individuality. From the moment you were in the womb, you were already encountering this archetype. You had no words, no logic, but you felt. You heard her heartbeat, felt the pulsing of her blood, the gentle contractions of the uterus. Your mother wasn't just the giver of life, she was the entire universe as you first knew it. She was the cosmos in miniature, the source of nourishment, safety, and existence. And it was during this primal phase that the image of the mother, through her presence or absence, began to etch itself into the emotional bedrock of your being. A timely embrace, a loving gaze, or even a long silence could create imprints, neural marks that shaped how you feel about yourself and the world. Jung wrote the mother archetype is one of the most widespread, most important, and most significant archetypes. But here's the key: the mother you carry is not only the real-life woman who raised you, she also exists as your inner mother, an internal figure who never ages, never leaves. And if your external mother was wounded, conditional in her love, or deeply conflicted, this internal mother will mirror that like a distorted reflection. The first symbol of safety, but what happens when it breaks? Picture a newborn. It cannot separate mother from self. If mother smiles, the world is safe. If she frowns, the world collapses. There is no mom is sad, only I must be bad. From this, a deep sense of shame forms, not because of wrongdoing, but from the belief I am the problem. You don't have to remember your childhood clearly, because what remains is not the story, but the emotional energy. It lives in your body. It becomes your nervous system, your patterns of love, your defenses. Jung said that which we do not bring to consciousness appears in our lives as fate. If you don't recognize the wounded mother image within, you'll unconsciously replay it in relationships with friends, lovers, co-workers, even with yourself. Mother complex, when you learn the wrong lessons about love. When your inner mother is wounded, you don't learn how to love. You learn how to survive in fear. That love must be earned through approval, that you must be good to be held, that being quiet is being safe, that your needs are a burden. These are not intellectual beliefs, they are survival strategies. The trouble is you grow up, but you keep living by them. You apologize when you've done nothing wrong. You believe you're too sensitive. You don't let yourself rest unless you feel you've earned it. And deepest of all, you don't fully believe you are lovable without effort. Your mother doesn't just live in memory. She lives in your nervous system. A neglected but crucial concept, neural imprinting. Modern neuroscience confirms what Jung intuitively understood: early emotional experiences carve themselves into the autonomic nervous system. You don't just remember your mother, you react like she once did. When someone avoids you, you shrink. When criticized, you either lash out or blame yourself. That's why positive thinking alone can't heal you. True healing doesn't come from willpower. It comes from accessing the deep neural roots where the mother image still resides. The mother as the first image of the feminine, impacting both men and women. Jung made a profound distinction between the mother complex in women and in men, often overlooked yet deeply transformative. In women, some become overly gentle, self-erasing, constantly pleasing others. They mother everyone except themselves. Others reject the mother image altogether, becoming overly tough, denying vulnerability, refusing their feminine side. In men, some seek a mother figure in their partner. They don't love the woman. They love the feeling of being mothered. Others fear emotional closeness, afraid of being consumed, just like they once feared their mother's intensity. Healing the mother archetype isn't just about family dynamics. It's about restoring intergender balance between anima and animus. This is essential on the journey of individuation, the path to becoming your true self. You may no longer live with your mother, but you still live in her emotional blueprint. Let's be honest, when you're rejected, how do you react? Do you shut down, apologize immediately, blame yourself? In love, are you always the one who waits, who understands, who endures? And the voice in your head, is it gentle, or does it sound like your mother's when she was disappointed? You didn't choose your mother, but you can choose how you respond to her image within. This is not an accusation, but an invitation. An invitation into your inner world where the real mother still lives. Not the mother out there, but the one who resides in your heart, your nervous system, your emotional reflexes. Will you dare to meet her, not to blame, but to listen, to transform, so that one day you can become the kind, loving mother you always needed, even when you were a small child who couldn't yet say your own name? If the mother archetype is the first image imprinted on the unconscious, then her voice, whether real or emotional, is the first sound that echoes in your mind. And when that voice is not one of tenderness and affirmation, but of volatility, coldness, or silence, then the soul wound doesn't begin with shouting or spanking, but with what was never said. From lullabies to silence, when boundaries were never formed. In households where emotions go unnamed, where a mother's moods shift like the wind, where silence stretches long like an unspoken punishment, a child doesn't learn how to feel themselves. They learn to read others in order to survive. Specifically, they learn to read their mother. If she's happy, you exhale. If she's upset, you hold your breath. If she's silent, you self-blame. That's not love. That's survival in an emotionally chaotic environment. You didn't learn I'm allowed to have boundaries. You learned I must be the emotional firefighter, always calming, always pleasing, always responsible for everyone else's feelings. As an adult, people with this kind of mother wound often find it incredibly hard to say no without guilt, feel selfish when doing anything for themselves, live in a constant state of overextension and exhaustion, but don't know how to allow themselves rest. Because deep down they've equated self-protection with betrayal. The inner voice isn't you, it's an echo of the person you once needed most. Listen to how you speak to yourself when you fail. I'm such a burden. Why am I so stupid? I should have known better. You think that's your inner voice? Not exactly. Carl Jung called this introjection psychological internalization. You absorbed how your mother once reacted to you, how she reacted to herself, how she suppressed her emotions, and turned it into your own inner dialogue. Now you're no longer just the child who needed a mother. You are the mother, a harsher version, never satisfied, always demanding perfection before love is earned. You monitor yourself, judge yourself, sentence yourself, not realizing you've been living with a second mother inside your own mind. When love becomes an audition for belonging, love at its core should be a place to soften, to breathe, to be. But if you carry a mother wound, love becomes a never-ending performance. You're constantly trying, predicting, making sure you never disappoint. You become the one who sacrifices even when no one asks, the one who can give but struggles to receive, the one who constantly checks themselves. Am I doing something wrong? Are they mad because of me? Every text becomes a test. Every silence a blow to your chest. You love as if you're asking for permission to exist. Worse still, you don't fall for kind people. You're drawn to the ones who resemble your mother, distant, cold, judgmental, or emotionally unavailable. Because deep in the unconscious, you're still trying to fix the past. You think, if I get it right this time, maybe they'll love me. Maybe mom in the form of this partner will finally choose me. Repeating patterns and reprogramming emotional blueprints. Here's what you need to understand. This is not your fault. This is a subconscious program installed to protect you before you even knew how to separate your own emotions from others. But as Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You need to spot the patterns. Ask yourself, when I fail, does the voice in my head immediately criticize me? Do I feel guilty for doing things for myself? Do I believe I'm only lovable when I'm pleasing others? If yes, it's time to speak to the image of the mother inside you. Not to blame her, but to separate, to rewrite, to gently lay her down from the throne in your mind. You are not your mother, and you don't have to relive her story. Here's a subtle but profound truth. Many people carry unconscious loyalty to their mother's pain. You might be shrinking yourself, afraid to outshine her, staying lonely because she was feeling guilty for having a calmer life than she ever did. But that's not love. That's a silent contract between two wounded souls. I won't be happy unless you are. And you can break that contract. You don't have to repeat her sadness to prove your love. You can love her deeply and still allow yourself a full, radiant life. You can be gentle and still have boundaries. You don't have to become your mother. You can become the woman or man you were born to be. If you see yourself in these words, you are not alone. Millions carry the imprint of a wounded mother image without realizing it. You don't have to forgive or forget instantly. Just start by listening to the voice inside and softly ask, is this truly my voice? What would I say to the mother inside me that was never said out loud? Emma, the story of a daughter awakening. Let me tell you about Emma, a 37-year-old woman living in San Diego, California. She has 2 children, a loving husband, and a respected career in advertising where people admire her professionalism and leadership. From the outside, Emma's life looks like the American dream: stable, successful, fulfilled. But behind the makeup, behind the packed meeting schedule and bedtime stories, lives a quiet truth. She feels empty. Emma describes it as a breath that never quite reaches the bottom of my lungs. Something is always stuck. A silent sadness, like she's living a life that isn't fully hers. A role, not a self. Why do I feel like a child pretending to be an adult? That's the question Emma often asks herself in the late hours. When the world is quiet, when she no longer has to smile or be reasonable, Emma always knew how to do it right. She's been that way since she was little. She smiled at the right times, helped where needed, listened and adapted. But behind the mask that society praised, there was a wordless sigh, the echo of something that had never been named. Her mother never hit her, but was always absent. In therapy, when asked about her mother, Emma was silent for a long time. Not because there was a horrible trauma, but because there were so many things that should have been there and never were. Then her tears came. Not for harsh words, not for punishments, but for the absence of simple things. A hug when she was sad. A simple apology when her mother was wrong. A look of recognition simply for being herself. Emma said, "My mom loved me conditionally when I got good grades, when I helped around the house, when I stayed quiet." And like so many children, she learned to live by expectation, not by the truth of her heart. When the child survives by becoming perfect. Emma didn't rebel, she didn't act out. She took the safe path, she became perfect. She studied hard. She was polite. She never made trouble. And soon everyone started calling her the ideal daughter, the perfect wife, the reliable coworker. But deep down, Emma lived by a silent rule. If I'm not good, not quiet, not exceptional, I won't be loved. This is a mother wound not born of obvious harm, but of a quiet absence of true connection. When Emma became a mother, and the cycle began. Now Emma has a 5-year-old daughter. One night when her daughter cried after a nightmare, Emma felt overwhelmed and snapped, "Don't be so weak." The moment those words left her mouth, she froze. A wave of shock rippled through her body. It was exactly what her mother once told her when she cried after being bullied in 2nd grade. Emma was stunned. She realized she was repeating a script she never chose. A script not remembered but coded in her nervous system, in her unconscious. What is not made conscious will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That quote from Carl Jung echoed in Emma's mind. It's not your actual mother who lives inside you, but the image of her you internalized long ago before you had words for feelings. If that image is cold, conditional, or absent, it becomes an invisible law of living. You don't even realize you're following. Emma began her journey not with anger, but with awareness. She realized she is no longer the little girl. She can rewrite the role of mother in her psyche. She can learn to become the gentle mother she herself never had. Small acts that rewrite the life script. Emma didn't start by forgiving her mother. She started with small, meaningful acts. She learned to say no to things that drained her. When her daughter was sad, she held her instead of fixing it. She just stayed. She journaled at night, writing the words she always wished her mother would say and saying them to herself now. One evening she wrote, "My dear, you don't have to be good to be worthy. You are worthy just because you exist." To some, those words might sound cliché, but to Emma, it was the first time she exhaled as a free person, no longer performing, no longer begging to be chosen. An invitation to you. If you've read this far, maybe you too carry a sentence that was never spoken. A small wish. A needed acknowledgement. A hug that should have happened. You don't have to wait for your mother to say it. You can say it to yourself starting today. What is one sentence you always wished your mother had said to you? Not because she'll read it, but because you deserve to hear it from yourself. The sentence I always wanted to hear from my mom is, write it, read it, feel it. Because what you can name no longer controls you. The way back, small acts with deep impact. Carl Jung once said, "You do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." We don't find clarity by fantasizing about light, but by courageously facing the dark. And when it comes to the mother wound, the dark isn't always dramatic. It's not the loud tragedies or the fierce traumas. Often it's the quiet absence, the way you were never fully seen as a whole child. Healing in this context isn't about fighting. It's not a rebellion. It's a return, a compassionate homecoming to the deepest part of you, the part that once just wanted to be loved but was overlooked, untouched. Begin with acknowledgement, I'm carrying what was never mine. Sometimes the first step in healing isn't doing something, it's speaking aloud a truth you've never dared to admit. A simple truth yet deeply transformative. For example, I live as if my mother is still watching me, even though she's no longer here. I feel guilty every time I rest. I don't know who I am outside of pleasing others. Write them down. Read them aloud in your own voice. These aren't just words, they're keys to unlock the unconscious. Carl Jung emphasized naming the unconscious gives it form. When you can name the fog, you begin to reclaim power over what once made you feel helpless. Rebuilding boundaries not with anger, but with love. For those who grew up with a mother wound the idea of setting boundaries often brings guilt. It feels like rebellion, like hurting someone. But boundaries are not weapons, they are fences to protect what's sacred. It's how you teach others and yourself that I am valuable. I am worth protecting. Try this. Say no without explaining why. Decline calls messages or requests that don't align without apologizing. Practice resting without guilt, giving yourself permission to pause without labeling it lazy or selfish. At first, your body will resist. You'll feel anxious, guilty, or wrong. But be patient. Every time you move through the old reaction, you're rewiring your nervous system to believe I am safe when I choose myself. Speak with your inner mother, the one you always needed. One of the most profound healing practices is reparenting, becoming the mother you never had. It's not about fantasy or self-pity. It's about rebuilding an emotional foundation you never received. Try writing a letter to your inner child in a gentle, non-judgmental tone, placing your hand on your chest and whispering, "You did nothing wrong. You just needed to be loved." Sitting with your feelings instead of running from them. When sadness arises, simply say, "I'm sad," and it's okay to feel this way. Each of these small acts is like laying a brick building a self that no longer depends on approval, but stands firm in unconditional acceptance. Breaking the unspoken vows with your mother's pain. This is a deep, often overlooked layer of the mother wound unconscious loyalty to her suffering. Many, especially women, carry unspoken vows like, I won't be happy if mom is sad. I won't be more successful than mom. I won't live in peace while she still struggles. You never said these out loud, but you live by them in the way you shrink yourself, reject joy, avoid ease, and feel guilty when your life is lighter than hers ever was. It's time to rewrite those vows. Try saying, I honor my mother's path, but I do not have to repeat it. My healing is not betrayal, it is redemption. Because when you live freely, you liberate not just yourself, but your lineage from cycles that were never healed. Emotional meditation, meeting the child within, a powerful visualization. Close your eyes, imagine walking into a dark, silent, cold room. In the corner, a small child is sitting alone, wide-eyed, familiar. Sit down beside them, no lectures, no fixes. Just presence, gently ask, what do you need right now? The child may not answer. That's okay, just stay. Because sometimes the most healing thing isn't doing anything, but simply having someone stay with you in the dark. If today you lived as if you were loved unconditionally, what would you do differently? Just imagine one day, only one, where you don't have to prove anything. No one is mad at you for resting. No one leaves you for being honest. What would you do differently? Where would you go? What would you say? Or finally be still? Try living one day like that. Journal it, feel it. Let your body taste the freedom of being enough. After the collapse, rebirth through awakening. When you enter the deepest layers of the mother wound, there comes a moment when every structure you've built for safety, the roles, the titles, the expectations, begins to fall apart. Jung called this the borderland, the space between the old and the new, where you are no longer who you were, but not yet who you are becoming. Collapse is not failure, it's a doorway. In the healing process, you may feel like you've lost all sense of identity. You no longer know who you are, without being the good daughter, the supportive wife, or the overachieving professional. You're unsure how to act if you're no longer seeking validation. You don't know what you deserve unless you've proven your worth. This leads to what feels like an existential crisis, a hollowing out. But in that emptiness, you haven't lost anything real. You've only shed a mask that was never truly you. Jung once said, "Only when we face the abyss do we discover the self." Collapse is not the end. It's a signal that the old belief system is ready to be dismantled so something truer can be born. The mother image still lives in the rubble. When the old layers fall away, you begin to notice the inner mother still lives in your psyche. In the decisions you still hesitate to make. In the moments you scold yourself for resting or doing nothing. In the whisper that says, "You're not enough." Many people try to change their outer world, new jobs, new partners, new cities, but the mother wound travels with them. It is a ruthless companion that lives in the unconscious until we face it. Now the door the mother once guarded swings open not to bring you home, but to invite you to leave that inherited home and build a new sanctuary within yourself. Rebirth, creating a new inner mother. When the old self falls away, something softer can rise. A new inner mother, slow, present, tender, the version you always longed for. In this stage, you may begin to feel you deserve rest, not because of what you did, but because of who you are. You can give without condition, like a mother who loves freely. You can name your emotions with compassion. "Dear one, today you feel sad. I'm here." This is rebirth. Not being born again, but becoming more whole. A person who no longer needs to prove or perform. One who simply is in each moment. Awakening is contagious. Healing becomes both knowledge and responsibility. Many believe healing is purely personal, but Jung emphasized that individuation, becoming who you truly are, is inseparable from restoring connection to community. When you heal the mother wound, you free yourself from inherited pain. You become the first safe home you've ever known. And you radiate warmth to others as a non-demanding mother, a present friend. Healing here is not a personal achievement. It's a sacred duty to re-educate the lineage on how to love. You don't just live for yourself, you live for the line. Happiness is not just a human right, it is a redemption for your entire ancestry. What actions will stop the cycle of generational pain? Here are 3 small but deeply meaningful steps you can take today. Speak honestly. Tell a trusted friend about your fear of not being accepted. Just being heard without judgment is a powerful act of healing. Write in your journal, prompt what my mother once said to my inner child. Then write your response. It's okay. You deserve to rest. Offer a small gesture of love to yourself. Turn off your phone for 1 hour. Drink a warm cup of tea. Place your hand on your heart and whisper, "I love you." These are not miracles, but with each act, you are rewiring your nervous system. You are choosing transformation over trauma repetition. The first feeling of freedom is fear. When you live even one day without trying to make someone happy, your body may tremble. It's strange you are free but never taught how to be free. The body reacts, headaches, anxiety. But don't retreat. This is the first awakening of the nervous system, realizing the world does not collapse when I rest. When you can name your fear, you've stepped beyond the border of inherited pain. If you're still reading, perhaps you've lived under a voice that wasn't yours. This evening, if you gave yourself permission to rest even for a moment, leave a comment today. I allowed myself to fill in your different choice. Don't worry if it feels small. Your rage, your emptiness, they are signs of awakening. And that in itself is already a miracle. The final choice, the ripple of awakening. You've traveled a full arc from the moment you first dared to face the mother wound, something that felt personal, but was in truth an emotional inheritance passed down through generations, to confronting the inner mother, enduring the collapse of old identities, and then being reborn as a fuller version of yourself. Now you are no longer just someone healing, You are someone recreating yourself. A free soul walking the path of individuation, as Carl Jung envisioned, not chasing artificial light, but bravely walking through the dark to find truth. Now you live not to prove, but simply to be. Maybe for the first time in years, you feel you don't have to be perfect to be loved. You can rest not because you've earned it, but because you are alive. You're no longer trapped in the roles of the good daughter, the ideal wife, the selfless mother. You're no longer fighting to be worthy. You're allowing yourself to simply exist with all your contradictions, your emotions, and your beautiful fragility. And in that gentleness, you step into a new realm, unconditional presence. Living as a witness, no longer as a performance. One day you realize you are no longer an actor trying to impress on life's stage. You become the observer, a conscious witness to your own behaviors, emotions, and thoughts. You feel sadness without needing to push it away. You feel anger without shame. Beneath every moment, you sense a quiet center where you don't need to prove, compare, or ask for permission to be yourself. You are not just a survivor, you are a healer. There is a profound truth here. In healing yourself, you are also healing your lineage. You're not just restoring your own soul, you are giving voice to the mothers, grandmothers, and great-grandmothers who were once silenced. You are not merely an individual, you are becoming a sacred place where healing happens. It is not a burden, it is a blessing. A call to action: start with something small. Healing doesn't begin with massive changes. It begins with one small act today: a slower breath, a no without justification, a letter to your inner child, a cup of tea sipped with full presence. Choose one and leave a comment below. Today I chose something you did differently. Each comment is a beam of light, not just for you, but for others silently seeking permission to be themselves too. If you believe that, healing is not a race, but a return. You don't need to push, you just need to be. Healing is not a project, but a way of life. Then please hit subscribe so you won't miss videos on deep psychology, archetypes, shadow work, and the sacred journey back to your true self. One more truth: you don't have to pay a price to be yourself. You don't have to be better than your mother. You don't have to outshine your ancestors. You don't have to suffer to prove your loyalty. You just need to begin with 1 minute of presence. Begin with one word of love toward yourself. And begin with the awareness that you are not alone. Healing isn't climbing a mountain. It's a quiet walk back home, even if it's a home you once forgot. Final affirmation: you are worthy of love not because of what you do, but because you are you. Live as a testimony to that truth every day with every breath. Leave a comment: today I chose. And share this video if you know someone who is still living under a voice that is not their own.